What's up, everybody? It's Kelsee Briana J, and today I'm here to do a video using the new Natasha Denona GLAM face and eye palettes. And as you all can see, I am holding two boxes, and that is because there are two variations of the same palette. There's a light version and there is a deep version, and I love to see it. So as I stated, the name of these palettes are the GLAM Face and Eye palettes, and that is because it features face and eye products. So in each palette, there's a cream blush, a highlighter, and 5 eyeshadows, and I want to test them out in the same way. What I like to do when I have two different versions of the same thing is do one side with the lighter version and one side with the deeper version and compare. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and it's always exciting to test out new Natasha Denona, especially when she says she has a new formulation that is supposed to offer extreme glow. So let's go ahead and get into the demonstration, and then following that I will give you all a breakdown on each shade and offer more thoughts, swatches, and comparison swatches. So I hope that you all enjoy. I already have my eyes primed. So on the left eye, I'm going to use the light palette, and on the right eye, I'm going to use the deep palette. So we're going to do the same thing on each side, but with each respective color. Let's start off with the transition shade and the light palette. And I'm just going to take this right above my crease with a blending brush. And I must admit, this color is going on a little bit more pink than I anticipated. So I thought it would be a little bit more neutral brown, but it's definitely leaning a little bit pinkish on my complexion, but that's okay because it's a light color. So I'm just gonna take this, blend it back and forth, and this is gonna help us blend out the rest of the colors on the lid. Let's go in with the transition from the deeper palette. Same thing. I can already tell you that I prefer the tone of this color more because it's more golden. However, this color is a little bit dark for me to use as a transition. On average, I would mainly use this as a crease color because if I go in with one more dip and go back over it, it's gonna be pretty dark. So for a transition shade, this is about a shade too dark for me, but it works. It's very pretty, very golden. You all can see the differences of the transition shades. So in the light palette, it's a lot more pink, and in the deeper palette, it's a lot more golden. But in both palettes, it blended out really nicely. I didn't have to do too much to get it to be nice and seamless. I'm gonna go back into the light palette with the light brush that I was using and pick up the crease shade. I'm gonna move down and apply this directly in the crease. And this is going to add a little bit more depth. This shade is a lot deeper. It's definitely veering on the neutral side, so it's not warm nor is it cool toned. But I just want this directly in the crease, and I want to blend it up to blend with the transition shade. I actually want to go back with a little bit more of the transition shade and go right on top just to work that blend out a little bit more. I need it to be flowing. Back to the deep palette, let's go into the crease shade. This shade is so much richer, so I do have to go in with a little bit of a lighter hand, just because if I go in with my pimp hand, it can be really difficult to blend out. So just go in with a little bit in the crease, and then we'll blend it up to work into that transition shade. And again, this is a lot warmer. You all can see it's a lot warmer in tone. Same thing, I'm gonna tap back into the transition shade just to blend it out. You can tell a total difference so far. The deep side is much more golden and rich, and the right side is much more neutral, almost veering into the cool toned category, but not quite. I'm going to take a smaller blending brush and the light palette. Let's dip into the smoke shade. Let's take that right on the outer corner of the lid and bring it around. Add a little bit of a smoky element. I really like the tone of this brown. It's pretty, it's rich, but it's not too extra. This is an ideal brown tone that I would use for an everyday type look. I think that looks good. Taking a fresh, smaller detailer brush, let's go into the deeper palette and take Smoke. Again, to be more light-handed will be to my advantage because this palette is much richer. And same motion, let's just take that right on the outer corner and then begin to fluff it around into the crease. Light palette, flat shader. Let's go in with the inner corner shade. Let's take that on the inner corner on the top and gently blend that over. It's a light silvery-ish shade. Wrap it on the bottom too. Deeper palette, inner corner, fresh brush. Let's do it. The tone of this shade is a lot more complex. It's kind of cool toned, it's kind of tan, and it kind of has a little bit of golden reflex to it. It's very multi-dimensional, but nonetheless similar. Let's go back into the light palette, and I'm gonna take the outer corner shade and break the rules, and I'm just gonna pop that on my lid. Ooh, ooh, that's pretty. Getting a little bit of fallout here. Same thing in the deeper palette. Oh wow, this color has a lot more red to it. It's a little bit burgundy, and to me it's not as shiny. Doesn't pop as much as the outer corner shade in the lighter palette. With the lighter palette, I'm gonna go back with the Smoke shade, and I just want that all across the rest of the lower lash line. And with the deeper palette, let's go in with Smoke too. And ooh, much deeper. I actually need to take some of this off my brush. And I just wiped it on the paper towel. So here we go. Here are the two eye looks with no liner and no lashes. I'm gonna close my eyes and let you guys get a good look at both of them. What do you think? Do you prefer one over the other? Tell me down below in the comment section. But I'll be right back. Let me put on liner and lashes, and then we'll get into the cheeks. So I have on my liner and lashes. So now let's get into this highlighter and blush. So let's dip into Star Glow in the lighter palette. Okay. Ooh, it's light. As to be expected, it's in the light palette. But it still works. It gives a really pretty glow, and it's very smooth. I like that. Let's do Star Glow in the deep palette. I much prefer the tone of this one just because it's more golden, but it's still light. I think you can see a pretty big difference in the two. This side is definitely more golden. This side is a little bit more silvery. Let's go back into the light palette and take the cream blush. Okay, that's pretty. Very light and fresh. I tried to build it up, and pretty much this is about what I'm gonna get on my complexion. So, deep palette cream blush, new brush. Yeah, I can see that a lot more. That's definitely the same color, but a little bit more pigmented. So I have everything finished. Here's side by side, a comparison of the light and deep palettes. Can you all tell a big difference? Let's zoom out and talk about it. And let's start off with talking about the quality of the palettes, and I think that both of the palettes were formulated very beautifully. I loved working with both of them. I didn't have too much issue blending out any of the matte shades or packing on any of the shimmer shades. I did get a little bit of fallout with the shimmer shades, but it's okay. All I have to do is dust it away. But just look at this shimmer. I just think it's really nice and refined. Plus it still has a little bit of dazzle to it. So I'm loving that, especially for a little bit more of a glam look for day to day. Or if you wanted to take it to the next level, you could, because it has that range there in both of the palettes depending on which one you chose. So quality wise, I really enjoyed it. I did notice swatching the cream blush that it was a little bit drier in both of the palettes. Swatching, but applying it on the cheeks, it applied very beautifully. I went in with a brush and I was able to apply both shades from each palette on my cheeks with no problem and blend it out. It did not pick up any of my makeup underneath, so I do enjoy that. But I think a lot of people have the question on their mind, which one do I need, especially if you are in the middle like me. I am a medium deep complected person, so oftentimes I find myself having to choose between light or deep. Most of the time I will veer towards deep, but sometimes the light can work for me. And with this palette, definitely both worked, but it just comes down to a personal preference. And I want to do a shade by shade analysis to give you all more insight on what I think about each shade by shade on my complexion. Cream blush, I'm gonna have to give it to the deeper palette. Just because I think that cream blush is a little bit more vibrant, it stands out more on my complexion, and I didn't have to build it up as much as I did the lighter one, but the deeper palette definitely packs a little bit more of a punch in terms of vibrancy. So I picked that one. But in both palettes, the blush is a little bit more sheer, so you can build it up. Even though the blush in this palette suits my complexion very well. For it to be a deeper palette, I do wish that they had gone a bit deeper, just so it can fit an even larger range of people. But don't think if you have a deeper complexion that it won't work for you, because it will. It's just you'll have to build it up to get that opacity and that color payoff. Now for the Star Glow. Look at this side. Now look at this side. Excuse me, hair. This side. I really like the Star Glow in the deeper palette again. But I just think the tones in the deeper palette are more complementary to me because I have a golden undertone. And the highlighter in this palette is more golden as opposed to the lighter one, which is a little bit more champagne, which it works. It works. It's pretty. But looking at it on a side-by-side basis, this one is going to pop a little bit more because it looks more natural and it fits with my complexion more. Versus this side, it's a little bit more stark and it stands out a little bit more. So if I'm going for that effect, I think it's pretty and it melts in. However, which one do I feel is the prettiest? I think this one is the fairest of them all. So I like this one the most. Eyeshadow wise, quick note, something that's driving me absolutely bonkers. Why are both of the palettes not arranged in the same way? Why? Who made that decision? And what I mean by that is in the light palette, the order is as follows. Inner corner, transition, crease, outer corner, and smoke. Versus in the deeper palette, it's outer corner. Why are we starting with the outer corner on this one and the inner corner here? And then it's transition over here, and then we go to smoke. But the third one in this palette is crease. So inner corner is the fourth eyeshadow in the deeper palette, and the fourth option here is outer corner, and then we have smoke. The order of the lighter palette makes more sense to me based on how I apply my makeup. So I'm not really understanding why we chose to mix it up in the deeper palette. I mean, I know it's still labeled, and we can use our cognitive skills to figure out what goes where, even if it weren't labeled. But still, it's like if we're gonna label it and we have two palettes that are the same palette, but one is the lighter and the other one is the deeper versions of each other, like it needs to be the same. Anyways, so let's start off with inner corner. Here's the inner corner shade in the lighter palette. Here's the inner corner shade in the deeper palette. Inner corner shade wise, I like the deeper version better just because I think it's a little bit more complex. Like I mentioned in the tutorial, it's sort of champagne, it's sort of tan, it's sort of gold, it's sort of silver. It's an ambiguous shade and I like that a lot. Plus I can see myself loving that all on the lid as well. So I just love that shade. I think it's pretty unique. Transition, as you all may recall, this shade goes on super peachy, super pink like on me, and it's not really a good transition shade for me. I would absolutely use this shade as a lid shade if I wanted to have a really pretty matte, neutral, peachy pink type shade on the lid. I like the shade, however, I like the transition shade in the deeper palette a little bit more because it airs more on the golden side. Again, the transition shade in the deeper palette is a little bit too deep for a transition shade for me. Going forward, I'll be using this shade as a crease shade just because it gives me that depth and I really like the tone of it. But if you have a deeper complexion, this shade is gonna be so pretty on you as a transition shade. But I also want to note in the lighter palette that if you have a lighter complexion but you have a golden undertone, this may pull peach on you as well. So this might not serve the purpose of a transition on you either. But think about it as a lid shade if it's a little bit too peachy for you. Next, let's get into this crease tone. Love that. This is actually a really good transition shade for me. I love that the tone is more neutral, so it's not very cool, nor is it very warm. I think that this is a really nice shade that will work with almost any eye look. The crease shade in the deeper palette got very warm. So I still like it, but if I had to choose which one I like the best, I'm gonna go with the lighter toned one for me personally. If you have a deeper complexion, I can see where you would like this shade a little bit more just because it adds that warmth to the eye. But I do think she could have gone a little bit more neutral and not as warm, but I still like the tone. It's very beautiful. It's a beautiful shade of brown. Outer corner. I think the outer corner shade is absolutely stunning. It's so easy to put on the lid and just get a really beautiful shimmery neutral look going. I love this shade a lot. The outer corner shade in the deeper palette is a lot more warm toned again, and I think it's really pretty, but on my complexion it didn't pop as much. So I prefer the outer corner color in the lighter palette on my complexion, and I think this shade will actually work on everybody's complexion, especially as a lid shade, or if you want to use it on your inner corner. If you have a deeper complexion, it will be so pretty. And the outer corner color here I think is really pretty as well. It's a really nice rich tone that you can use on the lid for fall, or if you want to have a smokier look. But I think the tone selected for the outer corner in the deeper palette doesn't pop as much, and even if you have a deeper complexion, I think this color won't contrast a lot, so it won't pop on your complexion either. But I think it's pretty, it's just more muted. And then for the smoke tone, again, I love the neutrality of the smoke tone in the lighter palette. And believe it or not, this is a rarely done color, so I'm glad to have more browns like this in my collection. The smoke in the deep palette though, it went there. I love how deep and smoky it is. It's a really beautiful warm toned deep brown. So I'm gonna say I love the smoky tone in both of them, and it's gonna be so hard to pick because I love both. I wish she just would have combined these into one palette. Like honestly, this could have been one palette and I would have been happy about it. But if I have to choose, I'm gonna go with the lighter one. I'm gonna go with the lighter one. So based on the final tally, the deeper one wins for me at a score of 43. But that's not to say that I don't like them both, because it barely won. If there had been one more shade in here, it could have been a tie. That's how much I like both of them. And I think that speaks to the fact that I have a medium complexion, like I said, and I can use either one comfortably. And I think regardless of what complexion you have, you could use either or. It's just don't get hung up on the titles that she put down at the bottom, because you may have to find other purposes for the eyeshadows aside from what she labeled them as. Looking at the eyeshadow portion of the light palette, in my head, I immediately go, oh, mini nude. It looks just like that. But I pulled out mini nude, and this is one of my absolute favorite, if not my favorite. You know what? Let me just go ahead and say it's my favorite mini Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette. These palettes bear a resemblance. While they are not the same, she definitely grabbed inspiration from the mini nude palette and put it into the light version of the Glam Face palette. But the mini nude palette is a little bit warmer. So for my complexion, the eyeshadows in the mini nude palette are more complementary than the eyeshadows in the Glam Face palette, the light version. And that's not to say I can't wear it. I mean, I can wear it. But I just think the tones of the mini nude palette are a little bit more golden, therefore I like them more. I also wanted to pull and just quickly show you all the Biba palette. It's a lot more neutral, and I don't think that these palettes bear any type of resemblance. Here's Biba, and here's the Glam Face palette, the light version. And here's Biba next to the deep version of the Glam Face palette. Again, they don't look similar at all. And then of course, I have to show you comparisons of these palettes to the original Glam palette. So here's the Glam palette. As you all can see, it's very cool. And here is the Glam Face palette. I don't see where these two bear a resemblance. And I'm not sure why she named these the Glam Face palettes, because I don't feel like they're a spin-off of the original Glam palette. So here's the lighter version next to the Glam palette, and then here's the deep version next to the Glam palette. So the color story for the deep version is pretty much the exact opposite of the color story of the Glam palettes. And same thing with the mini Glam palette. I definitely think this is more aligned with the original Glam eyeshadow palette than it is with the face palettes. Like I said, I think the mini nude palette looks more like the light version of the Glam face palette than anything. So which palette do I feel like I would reach for more? And I would probably say the deeper palette, just because it adds a little bit more of a richness there. And so I think that the deeper palette is the more unique offering out of the two. I think that these palettes are well formulated. I love the idea that more brands are coming out with lighter and deeper versions. I would love to see a medium offering be thrown into the mix, so people like me who are in the middle don't have to just settle and pick one or the other. If they just came out with a medium version, companies can go way lighter with the lighter version. They can give a truly medium option, and then with the deeper version, they can go even more deep. So that is my sincerest hope to the makeup industry. But all in all, these palettes are gorgeous. As the name states, it is a glam face palette, and I think she couldn't have selected a better name for the two. So let me know if you all plan on getting these palettes or if you pick them up. I will have affiliate links for you all to shop these palettes down in the description box. And as per usual, if you shop through my links, I do receive a small commission, and I do appreciate you all for that because it helps to support the Kel Bell community. Make sure you are subscribed and ring the bell to become a Kel Bell and to be notified whenever I upload new content. And I will check you all in my very next video, which will be super soon. Smooches. Bye.